This is a very open meeting. My name's John Keating. I'm ECC Chair. Sorry about that. Closer to the mic. I don't like speaking in public. Yeah, just turn up his hearing aids. This is an open format for questions and answers. We have Molly O'Liddy here from Virginia Forestry Department and Kenner Ingram here to help. We also have an arborist that's late and we will so chastise him later. So you can give him all the hell you want. But he's coming to assist. This was very successful last year. We had a lot of people and a lot of questions, and that's really what this is all about. Just to get an education. We are Lake of the Woods, and we try to preserve the woods as much as possible. So with that, I'm going to let Molly and Kinder introduce themselves, tell you what they do every day besides go around and look at trees, because they're very involved in lots of things. So Molly.
Awesome. Thank you. Thanks for having us. My name is Molly. I am a certified arborist and a forester with the Virginia Department of Forestry. I work with the Urban and Community Forestry program. So I actually work statewide, really with municipalities and managing their trees on a statewide level. So that can look anywhere from, helping with a tree planting project, giving species recommendations to we deploy for storm disasters. Last fall, we went down to Damascus to do a tree inventory for after Hurricane Helene. So we do a variety of different things, but all having to do with trees. So I'll give it to Kenner to kick us off. Yeah.
Hey, can you hear me all right? Okay, cool. So my name is Kenner. I am the district forester for the Rappahannock district. Louder? Wow. Never ever been told that before. Is that better? So I'm the district forester for the Rappahannock district. So kind of think Charlottesville to 95 to Shenandoah National Park up. So everywhere from Madison and Green and Orange to Loudoun and Fairfax. That's kind of the area that I've got 10 staff that do all kinds of different things. You said on an everyday basis. Just today, I've input receipts. I've gone and inspected logging jobs. I've worked on a pump that we have on a UTV from fires. It just depends on the day. As far as what we do, your local foresters, most of what they're doing is just kind of land management advice for, for property owners or, doing things like this, talking towns, localities, inspecting or timber harvests. I think we're the only state in the union that at least I know of where loggers are required to tell us when and where they're logging, and we go out and we inspect it throughout the harvest. We do that on a pretty regular basis. The fall and spring are our fire seasons, with spring being the busier one. So when it's really dry and everybody else is loving it, sometimes we're sitting there just waiting for something to happen. Yeah, that's kind of what we do. And in settings like an HOA, a lot of times we come out and we can work with folks or work with the HOA committee and kind of figure out, if there are projects that sometimes there's cost share programs or things like that that we can utilize to help get things done.
Well, thank you. Just so everybody knows, we did this last year, and Virginia was very kind and gave us, I forget how many trees it was, 350 seedlings that we passed out to the community on Arbor Day, I think it was, last year. And It went very well. We're also talking to them today. Ben Bro and the I'm not sure which one of the committees it is you're in. M&E, we talked last year about setting up and having Virginia come in and help us do a strategic plan of the community grounds and what we should or shouldn't be doing moving forward. Because there's a lot of grounds like Patrick Henry that got clear cut and need some assistance. So what trees and where we put them all matter. So if you have a question, I ask that you come up to the mic. It is being recorded for YouTube program on the website for anybody else that wants to see it. So if you have a question, I ask that you do come up to the mic. At this point, I open it up to questions and see if anybody's got any at this stage. No? Oh, here we go. Good. I was not here last year. I got called out and so I don't know exactly how it all went or what happened. Introduce yourself and your lot and spot.
Sure. My name is Susan Petty Baylor. I'm lot 103, section 7, I think. Susan Petty Baylor. I'm curious when there's a wooded lot, empty, somebody buys it, and it's totally clear cut, and there are no trees that ever seem to get replaced. And I understand that trees need to be removed for construction equipment, but it seems like there should be trees replaced. So I'm just curious what the story is.
I'm going to answer that first. The rules are that the building structure you get, and Matilda, correct me if I put any of this out wrong. The building that you're building, you have 10 feet from that building that you can cut. Anything, anything beyond that is over and above. Now, there are exceptions to that do happen because of drainage easements, lay of the land. There are issues that make exceptions to it. None of which do we approve lightly on ECC. We go over every one of them. Now, I was a builder. Okay, so I appreciate what they're dealing with. But we have some bad actors that like to ask forgiveness and not permission. And we go in afterwards and we've made many builders plant lots of trees after the fact. But it's not an easy process. And trying to keep track of it and up until May of last year, May of last year, we did this all by hand. We had no computer technology to help and keep track of it. We do now. And thanks to Bernie and TC pushing this forward, we got it early. And with the staff at the ECC office and some of the volunteers, we got it up and running in a very short window. So now we are better able to keep track of that because that is a big issue and it is not with our blessing in any way, shape or form. It is a constant problem. You're late. Come on up, man. This is Matthew Tierney, Arbor Pro, and he's here as an arborist, although he be late. All right, bud. I open it up to again to questions. Did I answer your question sufficiently? Could you please come to the mic? I'm afraid of your answer. I have to be politically correct.
My name is Gary Teets, and I've been a member of Lake of the Woods since 1989. I'm also a certified arborist, tree risk assessment qualified, and I've been in the business for about 44 years. Some of my background, I was the first arborist hired by the Department of Army to work at Arlington National Cemetery. I've overseen tree preservation projects at the National Zoo and the Hewlett-Packard Film Archives out in Culpeper. I've written hundreds of tree risk assessments and performed consultations, and recently completed, this is just touching on everything, a tree inventory at Fort McNair and Fort Myer. But getting to your question, when I moved here, in our home that my wife and I live in is a prime example of when equipment, excavation equipment was different. Biggest thing usually was a backhoe for digging, out for a property and clearing. Most of the trees on our lot remained except for the footprint of the house and the driveway. But now we have people coming in with these big excavators, and also it makes it a lot easier for the men. It's not much backbreaking work. But then another thing too, which I've seen over the years, is they basically clear cut the land and scrape all the topsoil off and the lumber gets sold and the topsoil gets sold. That's how business is today. I hope that answers your question. And one other thing too, is the home size in the community has increased dramatically since Fred can vouch for that, since we had a rush or a little spell of people were building like 800 square foot homes. And the association needed to do something about that, because the one that broke the camel's back was near the intersection of Mount Pleasant and Lakeview. They built it in a day, and people were just in an uproar. So then they increased the minimum square footage of a home. And that's why we're in the position we are now. And it's going to be hard to control, but we have a forest that we want to manage. I love the trees on my lot. I love them. My lot is so well treed, and I have a nice variety of trees. But for the rest of the community, it's difficult, especially for new home building, and also with other things that are occurring in the forest, as the foresters know, with diseases and fires and stuff. And I'll try to cut it, but as you all spoke about the fire season, I've been up in arms lately, past few years, with people moving in, deciding to have fire pits. And then also my experience, my experience knowing about all the fires that have occurred in the community over the past 38 years, where people are putting coal embers in paper bags or something on their deck. That's a big one, and other things. But anyway, thank you.
Thank you.
You go.
You're back.
I'm back. So our property is on the water, and I've had a bird's eye view of new construction, 3 that I can think of off the top of my head that we've got a great view of. And I understand the 10-foot around the house. But I'm talking from here to that door, beautiful green grass between the house and the water. There's no drainage issue, flat lawn. Sometimes it's a slope lawn, but it's nevertheless totally clear, not a tree in sight where there were a couple of dozen before. Clear cut, nothing replaced.
I'm not shocked. It's an issue that is constant, and to your point, the houses here are now all monsters. They are building restriction line to building restriction line. We're seeing houses that are right to the edge of the amount of building you can do on here. So.
And these aren't houses that are right to the edge, though. I mean, they have
Right.
substantial rolling lawns that
And
used to be treed.
Do you know,
Anyway,
what street is that on?
I'm sorry.
What street is it?
I'm on Tyler Trail. I'm
Okay.
looking out across the water. I can't tell you what streets they are.
Okay.
I just know I'm sorry? Yeah. Yeah. So it's pretty
Okay.
clear. Anyway, thank you.
Uh,
My name is Bob Ho. I have a couple of questions. For Kenner, would you go into more detail on what you're looking for when you inspect logging operations? For our two arborists, you're in two different worlds. I think, Molly, you're in the regulatory and so forth and so on, and you're boots on the ground. I'd like to hear what your different duties are more specifically for both of you. Thank you.
So when we are out inspecting logging jobs, basically like I guess our main thing that we're looking for is sediment in streams. Basically just making sure that we're not having like erosion runoff, that type of thing. That's the number one thing that we're looking at. That's really that's our main enforceable action item is that. So, yeah, that's the main thing that we're looking at.
I can add to it. So, every logger has to put in, we have a electronic system that notifies us and they map out where they're logging and it notifies our foresters and our foresters go out and walk the entire track, paying special attention to those water areas. And we make sure that the buffer that is supposed to be there, if there's a riparian area, is held. And we log all of that into our system. And if there's an, infringement, we have water quality engineers that go out and actually go to the site, meet with the logger, and they take it from there.
And I've never seen this happen because loggers know that we're out here and we work with them. We work really hard to build good relationships with them. If it ever got to a certain point, we could stop the job. And fines could be levied. Generally, fines are levied before the job is stopped. And they're gonna respond to the fines. The only one I ever saw get close, they had like 5 crossings and it was gonna be $500 a day per crossing. So you're looking at $2,500 a day. That situation got addressed really quickly. But we also have what are called BMPs, which are best management practices. And for most of the state, those are voluntary. Chesapeake Bay area, there's some of that's more mandatory, but we come out and we do audits of those jobs, the water quality staff who work with our foresters on that, but are kind of like a separate stream of employee for us. They come out and they look at them, and I think we have over a 90% voluntary BMP rate in the state, which is really, really good. I mean, that's 94% of people taking their time and their money to do something voluntary. So we have a really, really good track record with that. I hope that answers your question. Yeah.
Bob, right? Is that right? So as an arborist, we consider ourselves production arborists. We're in the field, we're cutting, we're trimming, we're talking with homeowners more often than not. This is kind of the anomaly when I get to sit with foresters and other folks and just kind of be a consultant. But yes, production arborist, most of the knowledge for arboriculture is used for educating the public when we're called out. And, I can't tell you how many times we get called and said, what do I need to do to trim this tree so it's healthy? Most of the time, it's nothing. The tree actually does better when we do the least amount to it. Most of the time, it's what we've done to it, whether it's environmental, soil, that is damaging the tree. So it's an education process, but it also influences our techniques and practices. So how we trim trees. There's a very little about as an arborist that talks about safety, which ends up being 90% of what we practice, but 10% of what an arborist is trained in. So it's fun to have an opportunity to talk about the trees with folks that just want to talk about trees, because that's most of the time we're in the trees and literally, just as you said, boots on the ground. You're welcome.
Yeah, that's awesome. A lot of what I do is I work with these folks, but I also work with municipalities. So on a larger scale. So more than I'm going to butcher this number, so I'm not even going to say it, but there's a lot of communities in Virginia that do not have their own certified arborist on staff. And so what we feel as certified arborists on DOF staff is we serve as technical assistants to those communities that do not have certified arborists on staff. And that can look anywhere from, if they have a comprehensive plan that they would like us to look at and give suggestions for tree canopy coverage and care. I mentioned earlier going into some of those smaller communities and paying for through Virginia Trees for Clean Water. It's a grant program. It's a tree planting program. Going in and teaching people how to properly plant trees, why we chose the species that we chose. And then we also focus a lot on education. So we have a nonprofit called Trees Virginia that is a educational organization for tree people, volunteers, professionals. We put on workshops every single year that cover the latest in arboriculture. We just had our big Roanoke tree care workshop in Roanoke. And we're going to have another large one in Waynesboro this coming year. So again, like we focus a lot on the educational piece. I don't have any regulatory power at all, just knowledge power, I guess, who want to listen to me.
In reference to some of the things that are coming with the new regulations, I mean, I haven't even fully read everything that we've gotten, but July 1, I think, is the date that they're enforcing all of this. It is going to require a lot more due diligence. And if I'm not mistaken, they're finally going to institute, there's a bond that a builder has to put up about not cutting the trees. And they're going to enforce that starting July 1, is what I've been told, through each individual county. So Orange Orange County's a little behind the times in some categories, and trying to get them up to speed. They're working very hard. We met with I forget her name now. Michelle, thank you, Michelle Mixel. Yeah, I had the last name. It was the first name I couldn't come up. We met with her and her staff about what's going on and what's going to happen and how we can do this. We're talking to Molly about there's a program where they will come help us do a survey of the entire facility and, work on that. There's been a lot of things that they've helped us with already as we've moved forward. And this is just an opportunity for some of the community to come see and hear what they have to say and what they can do and can't do. Because there's always that list of can'ts. And we have to be cognizant of that. So again, I thank them for coming. Any other questions? Fred? No, yeah, please. Otherwise, Lori gets mad at me. See? Yeah.
My name is Fred Ripley. I'm an E&S inspector and I do regulation enforcement recently to help Matilda out. But I noticed the one thing that stood out to me in the book, don't top trees. We've always told residents that if, a tree is either threatening to them or for whatever reason, they don't want it to be as big, we'd allow them to top it, but you can't cut it down. So my question is, there is no topping that is okay for the tree? I'd like to learn more about that aspect.
Hold me back.
Yeah.
So I'll walk you through a little bit of the cycle of a topping of a tree. So let's take a tulip poplar, for example. They grow very tall. That's their MO. They want to get above the canopy. That's where they get their light. So they grow fast and straight, get above the canopy. And that's where you see most of the mature tulip poplars sticking above the tree line. That can be imposing, threatening next to your house. So I can understand the desire to make it smaller. The problem is you take the top of a tree. Has anyone pruned their azalea bushes? Have you ever used a hedge trimmer? Don't worry, there's no gardeners here. What happens? It turns into a hedge. Like every cut, that's called an internodal cut. When you make a cut arbitrarily along a branch somewhere in the middle, you'll have 2 or 3 or 4 new buds that emerge near that cut. Okay, azalea is not a problem, right? But imagine that cut being on a 12-inch, 16-inch, 20-inch leader, scaffold limb. Now you have all these sprouts that sprout out. Okay, first couple of years, it just looks nice and green and bushy at the top. And everyone says, oh, look, my topped tree is doing very well. Actually, from the tree's perspective, it's gone into life support emergency mode. Let's put out as much growth as possible, as quickly as possible. If anyone knows Bradford pears, they grow fast, but they're also very weak, right? So fast growth equals weak growth. So you have all this new growth clustered around a nice big open wound where the center of that has no living tissue. The living tissue is all at the cambium. So new growth happens on the outside. The centerward of the heartwood will start to decay. So over years, that center piece that you can't see from the ground, you're looking up at it, you just all see all that growth. You have a hollow that forms down into that topping cut. Simultaneously, you have all those little sprouts that are getting bigger and bigger and bigger. So now you have scaffold limbs coming out from where? A big hollow in the top of the tree. So while it might seem like a short-term solution, it is 100% a long-term liability. So that's where you have you might have a shorter tree, but now you have these giant scaffold limbs that when they get big enough, they are going to break out of that tree and cause a big problem. I hope that helps why we don't top trees. What trees we can top? A crepe myrtle. That's right.
Okay, he's stealing my thunder. Jack Terra, Section 5, Lot 60. I don't want to top my trees, okay? I got a lot of beautiful trees and they're really tall and they cover a nice canopy and nothing grows underneath. I don't want to top it. How do I let more light in? Do I let more light in? I just accept I'm not going to have grass, which is okay with me. I don't want grass, but I can't get hardly anything to grow. Anyway, what arborists should we do?
So I'm glad you mentioned grass because 9 times out of 10, that is the goal that I hear is the goal is I want to get grass to grow. Okay. There are some shade loving things that you can get to grow. Full sun under a canopy is going to be a challenge, right? It's just, you can't have it both ways, right? Canopy reduction can be done within constraints of the tree's, ability to handle that. A lot of times it's a short-term solution. If we thin a canopy of a mature tree, that tree is going to respond by putting new growth out somewhere. And most of the time it's where the light is, right? Tree wants to harness the light, and that's going to give you, you'll be right back where you were to begin with. So my advice is, if you want to get things to grow, don't look at trying to cut holes in your canopy, but look at something more appropriate for what light you have underneath, for understory trees, understory plants. That's no, I mean, there's a lot to be said for an understory tree that grows slowly, those. Are we growing lumber, or are we having a yard?
Yeah.
I mean, they could tell you about how to plant a tree farm, right? Everything gets planted at the same time, spaced accordingly, everything grows up. Yeah,
If we're gonna have a conversation, I'm gonna give you a microphone.
all right.
You good?
Good.
You good? Okay,
Oh, Bob sees a microphone.
thank you.
Yeah.
You would know at Jackson, the Woodworkers Club.
So he does want to harvest it.
Comes down.
John, you talked about this survey and you said the entire facility. What is included in the entire facility and how is Molly going to help with that?
I can take that one. So it's not a survey, it's a management plan and it's a recommendation plan. So what we cover, being the state, we're a public entity. So we look at all of your public trees. Typically, they are not like your street line trees. They're more the clusters, like your parks, your beaches, your common areas. We'll take a look at the trees and give you a recommendation for that space. And did you have something?
Did you get the mic from Bob, please?
Bob.
Will you all be performing a tree inventory, actually inventorying the trees so that we know
No.
you've looked at?
No, so it depends, like there's a fine line. So why I'm hesitating is because we have this grant program. It's called the Urban and Community Forestry Grant Program, which HOAs are eligible for, but currently it is not funded through the federal government. So it is on pause. In that, you can apply to put a contractor in place to give you a tree inventory and we can help you pay for it, but we don't have that. Our foresters, technically we could do an inventory, but to be honest, we do so many management plans, we just don't have the capacity to do inventories. Now, if we go to, say, a park and there's a handful of trees around a play set, and you want to know what types of trees they are around the play set, we can call those out in the plan for you. But we're not going to go to every single street tree, measure the diameter, measure the height, tell you the condition. We just don't have the capacity to do that.
Well, thank you. I wanted to just for the audience that you and sorry, your name again, sir?
Kenner, like dinner with a K.
Kenner.
Dinner.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. Age, hearing.
Okay.
Is you guys are foresters and you're an arborist, Matthew's an arborist, and you all are foresters, and like arborists are urban foresters.
Mm-hmm.
Now, do you all consider Lake of the Woods a forest or an urban forest?
I would say both.
Because we are part of the Eastern Hardwood.
Yeah. For me, urban forests, if you put a drone up in the air and you're looking at Lake of the Woods, all of the trees that are within Lake of the Woods are considered part of the urban forest because they
Yes.
all take care of each other.
Mhm.
And so that's kind of my
Yeah,
answer.
that's how I see it too.
Yeah.
It changed from what it was back in the 60s before it started, being, for the lakes were installed and
Yeah.
the homes increased. But we're still, we can still get help from you guys.
Oh, yeah.
In some ways.
Yeah.
Well, that's
Yep.
nice.
So, forestry, traditional forestry, we will do, private landowner management plans for large swaths of forests. But we also do plans for areas like this. Like I said, we kind of pick out those clumped areas that are publicly accessible that we focus on, and we just give you recommendations. And I was telling him earlier that it depends on what your management goals are. So if it's aesthetics, if it's wildlife habitat, if it's safety, if it, and we tailor our recommendations to that. They're recommendations to be used or not used, how you would like to, but it's there. And we cite a lot of the things that were mentioned earlier about, proper arboriculture practices and best management practices.
I just want to say, years past, I went to several events that Adam Downing
Yeah.
hosted
Yeah.
out in the Madison area.
Uh-huh.
And at that time, I kind of felt that the forest and the urban forest in this region was kind of starting to meld together because of the development. And
Yes.
he held some nice events.
Yes. So Adam is actually on our Trees Virginia board. And so he helps us plan all of our arboriculture events across Virginia. So he's still very much is involved in that. So.
And a lot of times the forests and the urban forests, the management is going to be pretty similar, but the goals are going to be a little bit different, right? If you have 60 acres, you're probably, your goals are going to be different than if you have 6 acres or if you have 6/10 of an acre.
Yeah.
Jack Simons, Section 13, Lot 85. First of all, thank you all for coming. This is really important. Can you describe how many community management, forestry management plans you've been involved in, and what's the benefits, to a group that doesn't have one now?
Yeah. Yeah, so I've been involved, I was involved in the template of writing a forest management plan along with we have over 30 arborists on staff with Department of Forestry. Kenner is a certified arborist.
Yep. Yeah.
So he's just low key over here being like, So the reason is because he told you all of the counties that he covers. You're seeing more and more areas that are becoming urbanized, and trees are interacting with people on a day-to-day basis. What the forest management plan does is just give you information on where you live, the types of trees, the types of soil that you have, what types of trees may grow there if you choose to do a tree planting. Just gives you information. And it's completely up to you whether or not you follow those recommendations or not.
Thank you.
And I've seen a couple HOAs where, we give them the plan and then they blast it out in a monthly newsletter. I'm sure everybody in this room reads every newsletter cover to cover every time it comes. But it gives people something to look at. Yeah. But it gives folks something to look at, or maybe they'll see something going on and be like, oh hey, I think I remember seeing something about that. And so it can give a lot more folks who aren't here today, who may be really busy, and their only opportunity to interact may be just through that plan. Or maybe that does give somebody who was thinking about topping a tree, maybe they see something in there and they're like, oh, well, maybe I should, or maybe I shouldn't do that. So it can help educate more folks than the folks that are just in this room that already care. That would be something that we would put together.
Not yet. We're working towards getting that done. They don't know that yet, but we have started working on that. Everybody's got to remember, there are 4,261 lots in Lowell. And it is a huge job for covenant enforcements and ECC to keep track of what's going on. And it is, I'll be the first to tell you, stuff gets by us all the time. There's a lot of people that don't, and out of that 4,260, I think we're down to like 150 lots that aren't built on. And everybody that buys an older house, especially the ones that are on the lake, is taking that house and blowing it up. They're buying an existing lot with a little house on it, and it now becomes a mini mansion. So that's, not uncommon. Go ahead.
Gary Teach, Section 3, Lot 150. I just love the excitement in the room because I love talking about trees, as Matt, and it just grows on you. And you just never stop learning about trees. I took my first course in 1982 with the National Arborist Association. And since then, it's just been, crazy what you can learn about trees. But with what you're saying about the 4,200 lot owners in here, if you buy a home with trees, you get a tree manager's hat because you have to manage your trees primarily for safety reasons. You need to become aware of the trees. I talk to my trees in the morning when I come out. I'm keeping an eye on them, but I'm an arborist. But it's, by doing this, you're helping to manage your forest, and also you're reducing the risk, because if you stay abreast of what's going on with your trees, you prevent the likelihood of personal injury, God forbid, or property damage. And that's what's been going on in this community since I moved in here. Accidents occurring. You can't control what happens during a bad storm, but you can mitigate things, because there's always some risk living around trees. That's just the way it is. Something's always falling out of the trees. It isn't leaves or twigs or stuff. It's dead limbs. And your goal is to keep the areas like you frequent a lot, like your driveway right around your house and stuff, free of dead trees and dead limbs and stuff, so that you prevent that likelihood of an accident. And anyway, thank you.
I have no clue where my lot is or whatever it is, but it's like from. I just had a tree fall down. Thank goodness it missed a house, but it went towards to my dock. I've got another tree that is, to me, it's iffy. It's a lot of pines and a lot of firs that I believe are very shallow rooted, and they're very close to the house. And what I'd like to learn, which is what I thought we were going to come here for, are those maybe flowering trees or other kind of trees that have deep roots that grow in this area, that don't have the danger of falling on my roof. So if you have information like that, I'd love to hear of it.
If I had a magic answer, I would give it to you. My best advice is hire a certified arborist to come out and take a look at your trees. Yeah. And they can tell you whether or not the tree is dangerous. So I'll let you go.
Well, I'll address your specific question. You mentioned shallow rooted. This is something I hear a lot from homeowners, that they didn't know their trees were that shallow, or they saw one come up. Where did that come from? That idea that you've got some shallow rooted trees?
Because the tree that fell,
Yep.
Brought the roots
Yep.
up,
Yep.
and
Yep.
they were just almost superficial.
That's what I thought.
Yeah.
So, and this is an excellent question, by the way. This is perfect. Most of the roots of your trees are going to thrive in the top 18 to 20 inches of the soil. That's where your structural buttress roots are. And as you know, in Virginia, we have topsoil
Right.
and clay. Roots can proliferate through the topsoil. When they hit the clay, yeah, they'll put a few hairs in there, and they'll say, nope, that's good, because there's not much for the roots down there. I mean, a little bit, but if you're really looking for root spread, but that buttress root system on the surface is surprisingly stable. And for most of our trees, it's good for long after, you know, all the tree. If we could pull up every tree, you'd see a similar looking root plate. It, you know, spreads out. You've got a lot of buttress roots that fan out from the surface. There's really not a, you know, we're not going to pull a tree up and see one giant tap root that goes down 10 feet in the soil. Just doesn't happen. The roots have no incentive to go there. So it's important to know that there's really no magic tree. Some species are better than others as far as their structural integrity, you know, when it comes to weathering storms. I'll volunteer a piece of information that when you talk about trees coming down in storms, I'd asked a lot because a tree may be close to your house. It feels threatening, okay? And we have unfortunately pulled a lot of trees off of houses. I'm glad to hear yours didn't hit your house, but and more often than not, the ones that do the most damage are not the ones right next to the house. We call those sentinel trees, the ones that are right next to the house. When a tree comes down in a storm, it's usually a pretty slow process. If a tree is uprooting, like you said yours did, usually it's blowing, it's blowing, it's blowing,
With the wind.
it's leaning, and it finally goes, okay? If your house is here, this is the only energy it has. If it's here, it has a lot more kinetic energy when it hits. So don't be afraid of a tree just because it's close to your house, because the chances of those causing catastrophic damage are actually much less than the tree that's 30, 40 feet away, okay?
I believe so. Yeah. Yeah. And the problem that caused this one to fall on one side of my house, there's the other ones that are on the other side of the house, and it's the tunnel effect of the wind. You know, it comes between two houses and it just speeds it up, and I can see the tops of those trees going, you know. And I've got one in particular that I feel is
But-
quite dangerous. But then the
You can put an application in. You can put an application in to ECC and if you have a tree that you want to get removed, you can also there are arborists that will come out and just give you that review on your property.
and is there a
So it's-
list? Is there a list for Lake of the Woods?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we have well, no, we don't. Yeah, we've just been told we can't pass out the list. Right?
Getting back to your mind, which probably is you have that kind of situation. When you have that kind of situation with the pine tree, the crown of the tree is up here, and then you have this long stem. And when the wind blows, it's creating more force, more load on that stem, and it all transfers down that stem to the root plate, as Matthew was saying. And that's why pine trees, when they're big and tall like that, you see them kind of bending and stuff. They're heading for a disaster, especially in situations like yours where the immediate environment is changed by new construction. Now you have, it's not being protected by other trees. It's been opened up and now it's more prone to being, you know, swaying back and forth. So that's, you know, it raises the risk level of the tree, which before it might have been low to medium, and now it's probably on the low end of high, or it might even be a high risk tree at this time.
But you can put that online now. You can do this all. You can do this all online. Go to SmartWeb. Yeah. One of the standard operating procedures at Lake of the Woods is if you ask for a tree to be removed and it's a pine tree, we almost always approve that. So if it's a pine tree, it should be pretty simple. I don't know if that's the right thing to do or not. I'm no arborist. I have learned something. I got a very straightforward lesson from somebody, I won't mention any names, about watering underneath your trees. It get grass grow right up underneath your trees. That is not contributing to the tree. It is only helping the grass.
These pine trees also have another negative to them. And if they're too close to the house, all these needles and sap will go into that roof. And I've already had to replace the roof.
Right.
But the gutters and all that stuff just get clogged. So, if I could replace them with some flowering trees or something like that, it'd be. Also the situation of privacy between our homes.
Question. REC, Rappahannock Electric Corporation, comes by periodically with their bucket truck and a chainsaw. And their goal is safety to protect the wires. But what restrictions do they have? I've seen them, they take down big limbs and entire trees. Is there anything interface that there is a control of that?
Yeah.
And that's vertical right away.
Gotcha. Yeah, thanks. Sorry. The utility easements, under state law, give them more than just the 10 feet. There's an automatic 10 feet, under our covenants.
I had it once. Yeah, there's a right of way from the road that gets to your property, Mark. Your property does not go to the road. And it's usually close to where maybe a telephone pole is. After that, there's 10 more feet towards your house that is your lot, but is also utility easement. 5 foot on either side of your sidelines is utility easement. So that's how that worked. Can I ask the question I was going to ask before? We talked about construction and what it does to the trees. Two parts of this question. First of all, is there things that an excavator you use can do to be kinder to the ones that are not taken without ruining their roots, number one? And if they're digging a basement, you're in a close thing, you get piles of dirt, some of which end up on the tree. How long can that dirt be there before it's done irreparable damage?
You want to take it?
Yeah, you don't even need us here. You got,
We got an empty seat right here for you.
I love Lake of the Woods. I love the trees in the lake. I can just sit here and just think about the trees that I've come to know over the past 30 some plus years. But getting to about putting, Fred, they're excavating and digging out a basement and they're piling the dirt on top or around the trees. And it's kind of iffy, but most of the time trees don't do well when dirt is piled on top of them. And the reason why on the soil is because the roots of a tree, or most any plant, grows accustomed to the air space that's in the soil so that the roots can interact with the soil to absorb minerals, nutrients, and water. But when the dirt is piled on top, or equipment, or even people, like Lakeview, like the Clubhouse Point, from all the many years, which I pointed out back in the early 90s, I was just beside myself what was going on up there, and then what was happening to the trees. But I'll get off that. But when the compaction occurs to the roots, it kills it. It's like you're being suffocated, squeezed. The roots are being squeezed and they can't interact. But the trees live a slower life than we do. They don't react immediately. So all said and done, and the contractor goes away and the people are in their home, everybody's happy. And then a year and a half, 2 years down the road, they notice that the tree is getting all bare in the top and stuff. That's because the roots have been compromised and they're not able to bring up the water, minerals, and nutrients to help the tree to photosynthesize. And it has to be managed. It's called construction management of trees. And like my first day on the job at overseeing the National Zoo project was the toughest day, because those contractors wanted to come across all those big trees and crush the earth around them. And I said, no, you can't do that. And they said, why? I said, well, did you all look at the prospectus fully? I had $1,000 per inch for the loss of those trees, and it was like 875 inches of trees. And that changed their mind right there. You've got to really be, firm with contractors, because they don't understand trees the way that arborists do.
Yeah. Some
Okay.
of the, you were asking about like different like techniques that you could do to protect the trees. So, most of the substantial roots within the tree, like he was saying, go out, not down. And so you want to focus on the drip line of the tree. Do you know what a drip line of the tree is? It's like when it rains, the outer edges that drip from the tree, all the way around the tree. That's where your critical root zone is. And so if you can avoid driving equipment or storing equipment under the drip line of trees. Now, I know that's not favorable, because if it's hot outside and you want to take a break, or, people use the shade. Another thing you could do is put down like inches, like 10 inches of arborist mulch, which is just wood chips, to try and mitigate that compaction. You can also put, like how we have at the logging jobs, different pallets down to try and reduce that immediate compaction right underneath the tree. So if you can try and, stage your equipment and use your equipment not under that critical root zone, that's the main concern.
Yeah, and just piggybacking on what you said, setting up that critical root zone, which sometimes the drip line is hard to determine, especially you have a tree that's growing out in one direction. Obviously, the drip line, if you went by the canopy, is stretching out there. A good rule of thumb would be for every inch diameter at breast height of your tree. So we measure about 4 feet, and you look at the cross section diameter from one side to the other. And you can, if you need to wrap a tape around it and use, divided by pi, you can do that. But basically the diameter of the tree in inches, convert that to feet. Okay. So if you have a 12-inch diameter tree, that's a 12-foot diameter critical root zone. Okay. That's like yes. Total. So what would that be in radius? 6, right? So a 6-foot radius around a 12-inch tree generally is going to be your critical root zone. It's a good starting point. So if you can't establish the drip line, which that would be ideal if it was a nice symmetrical tree, we go out the drip line, easy to see that, right? But some of our trees are not that easy to distinguish. So, and the roots will grow in different directions. If you have a constant water source that tree has grown up with, like a condensation drip from your house, you'll notice you've got roots coming from that maple that run right over there. Well, guess what? If you cut those roots for that maple is going to be hurting. Going back to your point about trees, they take a lot longer to manifest problems. 7 years is a good rule of thumb for how long a tree can show damage to its roots. So most builders, my father's a builder. Most builders have a 1-year warranty, right? Put the yard in, grass is green, bond release, good to go, right? 2 years later, trees start to die. It was from the construction, right? So just remember that when you have, and again, going back to critical root zone, if you set up that critical root zone, put a barrier, you ask what can be done, set that up before the construction starts, before anyone has a chance to get in there and put dirt anywhere, move dirt, because adding 3 inches is just as damaging as removing those 3 inches of soil for the roots. Okay, they want to exist in the same soil that they establish themselves in. Okay, putting dirt on top of roots is just as damaging as pulling that soil away.
That's occurring in our community now with the larger homes and the size of the lot. It's good, proper planning just to take all the trees out, because if some are preserved with these large homes that are being built on these small lots, they're within the drip zone area of these trees, and they are damaged. And then the people, move into their home and their trees start dying, and then they're faced with the cost of removing it. It's just, it's kind of common sense. If you're going to build a 10,000 square foot home on a 15,000 square foot lot, there's not too much room left for the trees. So then most people that I've seen around the community put in fruit or ornamental trees.
Another technique that can be used if you're really trying to preserve a tree on a building site, request an air spade to be used to excavate the roots out within that necessary excavation area, okay? Because most people, when they're digging a basement or footers, they're using an excavator and they're ripping through the roots. So even though your trench is right here, you've grabbed that root and you've torn it all the way back 6-8 feet to the tree. You've destroyed that root. So if you can expose those roots, and again, we only need to go 16, 18 inches down to see where those roots are. Expose them and then cut them, surgically cut them. If they have to be cut, cut them rather than ripping them out. So another technique that can be used to increase the likelihood of that tree gonna survive, especially when you're working within that critical root zone and there's no way around it.
The term that you might be able to talk with builders on is tree protection zone. That's kind of the name for what they're all saying. If you can set up mats around it or set up a physical barrier, whether it be those little chain link fences that you put on posts. You can use whatever you want. Just remember that they're using big, heavy equipment, and that little flagging is not as strong as that heavy equipment. And then you just have to keep eyes on it because a lot of that stuff can be moved.
Okay, not a construction question, but you touched on something. Cutting roots. I have all kinds of issues of the roots lifting up the walkways, and I'm paying a bunch of money for pavers to be reset. I have a couple of roots that just go up and over and down. Can I cut those? It just seems like, should we cut those? Do I take the whole tree down because it's just going to lift my walkway again?
So as an arborist, I'll say no, but
No, I can't.
no. We have to be able to live with the trees, right? We have to be able to live with the trees, right? We have to be able no, I mean, it's important for us to be able to have a home functioning yard, not falling in our own front yard, right? Yes, they should be cut when they need to be. Most of the time, roots are growing up in a yard specifically. A lot of times it's because they're competing for the same nutrients as the grass. Okay. May or may not be the case. Or they found a nice water supply and they've gotten very healthy in that direction. Okay. We see that a lot near foundations, downspouts, where, you've got the maple tree over there, and then you've got these nice big surface roots that have just snaked their way right over here, because guess what? Every time they've got water, or under sidewalks, under any impermeable surface that has condensation underneath of it daily. I mean, it's like a daily water supply. Every morning, it's got condensation under your sidewalk, under your driveway. So unfortunately, it's a great place for roots to seek it out.
My concern is more the foundation of the house. And is it proper to just do a trench and cut the roots that are there so that it won't damage the foundation anymore?
If your foundation is a solid poured foundation and is waterproof, okay, don't worry about the roots.
Well, it has in my case, it has a pipe that goes from underneath the foundation and throws water out.
See, it's probably the drain tile that runs around the base of the
Right.
foundation to
Right.
drain water away from your footers out.
Right.
Um,
But I have an area, it's like a patio area.
Mhm.
That's part of the foundation that is already cracked.
Okay, so if you've got a patio, you've got 4-6 inches of concrete basically on the surface, right? We talked about where those 90% of the tree's roots are is within the top 18 inches, and that's all they're going to do. They're going to go under that patio, and that's where you'll get damage. If they hit a vertical surface like a foundation, and there's no pre-existing cracks where water is infiltrating that foundation, those fine root hairs, every root starts as a hair. And if you try to take a hair from your head and push it into something,
God,
can't do it.
No more hair from my head.
But if it can get inside of a crack, much like those little airbags you can use to wedge open your door, they can split it open, okay? So an impermeable surface, a vertical surface like your foundation, that's below the freeze line, that root it cannot get under, it doesn't want to, has no purpose of getting under the footer, it's going to turn to the side. And so for foundations, I'd say most of the time you don't have to worry about it if it's a waterproof foundation. Anything that's surface like your driveways, your patios, your concrete walkways, sidewalks, those can be damaged by roots that are under it and expand and heave it upwards.
What do you do with those? Do you cut them?
Yes. I mean, that's the only way to prevent them from causing a problem. And you can put in a root barrier, which in some cases only needs to be a plastic poly. I mean, we do bamboo mitigation and, you know, with those aggressive runners, and if they hit a waterproof surface like plastic, that's all it takes to stop a root.
We talked a little bit about grass. What about mulch and what the effect is on trees and how much is too much?
There's a really good pamphlet over there for you. Yeah, so the best type of mulch, in my opinion, is arborist chips. They're big enough to where water can get through them, and they're large enough to where they don't kind of compress together and cause like a impenetrable surface. So with mulch, what you want is something that allows water in and keeps the sun out to give those roots a break in the summertime. And we usually say 2 to 4 inches of the arborist chips. If you go too much, you can love on your tree too much, and it becomes what we call volcano mulching. And you see this a lot in like grocery store parking lots. They're trying their best for the tree. They say mulch is good. Okay, here we go. Here's a truckload of mulch on the base of the tree. That is doing what we were talking about earlier, is just suffocating the tree slowly. And also it's encouraging roots to actually pop out of the trunk higher up on the tree. So it is no good. So 4 inches of your arborist wood chips all the way out to the drip line if you can, or as far out as you can, is best.
I have a question for you. The conversation you and I had in reference to watering, and the dilemma that causes, I think most sprinkler systems water typically once a day, early in the morning, and they don't put down a large volume of water. If you're watering over a longer period, you water longer so that the water can seep into the ground, like a heavy rain does. Is that better? Is that worse? Does it make any difference?
Generally speaking, sprinkler systems are not good for trees because generally speaking, a sprinkler system has been installed decades after that tree has been established. So most of our trees that we have in our yards are 30, 40, 50, 80 years old. Sprinkler system has been there 10, 20, maybe 30 years. A tree has established those roots to take advantage of the water supply that's available to it naturally. If we start to provide an artificial source of water, the tree may take advantage of it, or you may just suffocate, drown, literally drown the roots that have been in the soil that normally is allowed to dry out enough for those roots to thrive. So while, and grass is more like, it has a very short memory, very short reaction. You may need watering to keep your grass green. It does nothing but hurt your trees usually. So John, there's not a lot that I can say positive about a watering regimen for trees. If we're in an extreme drought, we know we're in a drought. Yeah, you can run it. It's going to give the trees a break. But more often than not, it's just causing problems or at least stress for the tree trying to cope with too much water.
And I'll add, if you're planting a new tree, that's when you want to water slowly and deeply. Even just taking a hose and putting it really on low or on drip for like an hour and then coming back, letting it just seep down. That's a really good way to establish a tree. But established trees that are above, 10, 20 years old, they don't need that extra water.
How about the use of the rubber mulch that's been big in recent years, and people that get into hardscape, pebbles or whatever? Are you still accomplishing the same thing?
Not the same thing. It's better than an impermeable surface. Okay. It's better than pavement. It's better than even weed barrier. I'll just get on a soapbox for a second. Don't put weed barrier under your trees, under the mulch of your trees. Okay. It might be nice not have to pull the occasional plant that's growing in a place you don't want it. That's what weeds are. They're nothing bad about them. They're just not where we want them. But those will also suffocate your roots of your trees. Okay. Pebbles, anything non-organic, as long as it's water permeable and does keep a certain amount of the sunlight from drying it out too quickly, can be helpful as opposed to nothing or grass. But it doesn't provide you the ancillary benefits of mulch, providing a little more acidity, that organic material that's going to break down the mycorrhiza that can flourish in the mulch as it decomposes. So a little bit of benefit, but nowhere near the benefit of 2 to 3 inches of natural mulch.
Yeah. And to add to that, the rubber gets really hot in the summertime if it's in the sun. And we've seen some detrimental effects to that microbial activity of the soil that is directly beneath that rubber mulch.
We've got a number of streams that have undercut trees or intermittent stream ditches where, you literally see under the tree. Is there anything we can do to address those conditions?
The experts got
It's
any?
more of an engineering question.
Yeah, it's yeah. Unfortunately, I know what you're talking about. We've dealt with a few of those. Going back, I guess, to what's causing it. Changing runoff patterns, increased runoff, can cause it happens in nature actually more often than not. You go in a stream in the woods and you see it all the time. And unfortunately, the trees eventually will succumb to it, or they'll just slowly lean over the creek. And you've got this really interesting arching tree over the creek, and it may live there for 100 years. But it's disconcerting to have that in your backyard, especially if it's potentially going to fail towards something that's important to you. There's really not much permanent that you can hope to do. Anything that we say, oh, we'll just fill it with dirt. If you've got an active stream or an intermittent stream, it's usually going to wash it away. Yeah, you could put riprap around it to try to slow that. redirecting the runoff, if you know where that runoff is contributing to that erosion, slowing it down maybe if it's an intermittent stream that only happens when, you know, the water's really rolling, that can help prevent it from happening. But once it's happened, it's really hard to put that soil back in a way that the tree can take advantage of it. Because usually if that soil has been stripped away, the roots have been, the fine root hairs have been exposed. It's, you know, burying it again isn't going to do the same thing as if it were never removed in the first place.
But part of that new Virginia DEQ directive is addressing some of the runoff issues and the drainage easements on your property. You are responsible for the drainage easement, but you can't impede it or change it without getting permission because it has an effect of everything else downstream. So that's all part of that new DEQ, Department of Environmental Quality regulations that are coming out now. They've actually been, from my understanding, they've been in place for years, just nobody's ever done anything about it.
It's something. It's part of being a tree manager. When you have the situation you're speaking of on your property, you have to do something to manage this tree to prevent the likelihood of it falling on your home, which, you know, would probably require removing the tree or building some type of bulkhead or something around the stream to prevent the erosion from continuing, because the homes are being built. The community's about built out, but this construction has increased the runoff, which has increased the, you know, the wear and tear on these streams and stuff. And I'm just thinking of a situation right down the street from my home. Lady, they moved in there about 10 years ago, and it wasn't their lot, but it was their neighbor's lot, which wasn't built on yet. But it was eroding really bad underneath of it. You could, I mean, most of the root system was exposed, and only a little bit was holding it up. And then when the new homeowner built, they ECC allowed them. Probably Fred came by and looked at it, allowed them to take it down. But as far as I know, the erosion is still occurring, or maybe they put riprap in there. But anyway, it's just as getting back to it's as a tree or homeowner with trees, it's part of your tree management plan to be aware of what's going on and also be aware that you're going to be facing costs to help to maintain your trees.
To carry out, comment on one of your statements about the being built out at Lake of the Woods. Yeah, but they're changed. I would tell you the build has changed. The process now, we're getting more and more renovations that are huge than we've ever gotten before. And some tear downs, probably I'd say that probably 50-50 tear downs and remodels. And it's having as big an effect or bigger effect than than a building on a vacant lot. So it's the atmosphere here has changed dramatically just in the last 10 years.
Along those lines, is there a restriction on the size they can build a house on? The lot for impervious surface versus pervious surface?
Yes. Short answer, yes. It depends on the lot. Because each lot has its own building restriction lines. Just like any lot anywhere in the county. Depending on how big your lot is and where it is and what's next to it, and you know, is it on the lake? Is it on the golf course? Is it right? Yeah. Yeah. There's no rule at Lake of the Woods as far as that's concerned. But what the county and the state are worried about in all these renovations of the rules is the fact that that has an effect. If you go and look at what has happened at Lake of the Woods, just in the last few years, when they put the 4-bay dam at the back gate, that 4-bay was designed to handle the water flow. What they didn't take into account was the fact that Locust Grove Town Center, thank you, Town Center has what, quadrupled in 10 years. And the school out here, all of that surface, I forget the lady's name at the moment that owns the farm at the back gate, Flat Run Farm. She says the water flow in her property has tripled. And that all comes to the lake at some point or another. So and this is to why they're here. They have some help that they can provide for Lake of the Woods to help manage that. And this is the start of a process. And nothing ever happens quickly. So we've got a lot to do here and a lot to accomplish. It's not a simple, there is no simple answer. We deal with, at ECC and covenant enforcements, we deal with people wanting to build these monster houses on this little lot. And it causes, it has a ripple effect everywhere. And we've got several lots on the association. In the association, we have several lots that the houses have been built on 20 years ago. And they were built in the wrong place and didn't deal with the ground and the water runoffs properly. And now it's causing a big problem and they expect us to fix it. Well, that becomes an issue as far as the ability to be able to do that. So there's a lot going on, and ECC in particular, we're here to help. In spite of what a lot of people may think, if you have a problem or you have an issue, you come to ECC, we'll do what we can to help you. That's the idea. We have to deal with the rules and regulations and stay within those parameters, but we are here to help. So any other comments? Questions? Yes, ma'am.
Recommend, or they can no longer recommend.
Oh, okay, she got it. She hadn't turned me back on. She had me cut off. We used to have a list of contractors. We've been told that we shouldn't be doing that because that's in essence a recommendation. And personally, I'm very careful about recommending anybody because of where my position in the association. But there was a list. We're trying to find another way to put it out and publish it that would satisfy. Yeah, we're going, go to the Lake Currents and they're, so we're working on, no, I get, well, see that you're a perfect example. You're assuming that we're recommending them. And that's what this list was, not a recommendation. It was a contractor's name and number is all it was.
How about, can you recommend gardens and reputable tree sellers and?
I don't know, John, can I recommend anyone? Maybe not when I'm sitting up here.
If he doesn't feel comfortable saying it because he's representing
A company.
arborists in general, and he may or may not have a company attached to his name.
Oh.
If you go to treesaregood.org, you can find treesaregood.org.
Okay.
You can find ISA arborist local.
Yeah.
Sorry, John. You can also go to the ISA website and search for arborists in areas, and it'll give you a list. And sometimes that will be helpful to direct you towards, they may just hold the credentials and not have a company, but sometimes they do have a company or associated with a company. So yeah, there are some resources out there, but start with the certified arborist as a baseline. I'm not even saying that all certified arborists are going to give you the same level of service and quality and expertise, but
You gotta be careful. This is very, difficult ground for us, because there are, tree people anybody can become a tree expert. Okay. Very few are tree arborists, a true arborist. And we have several, again, the best expression I can give you is bad actors within the lake. They go soliciting and knocking on your, I'm working next door, you've got a dead tree. That's his opinion. And that's a huge problem here. Because unfortunately they get in because they were working with permission at somebody's house, and then they start knocking on doors. And then we have some that live within the lake, which makes it very difficult for us to do anything about. So,
Case in point, I just saw my neighbor yesterday. I had seen him talk. But about 15 years ago, she got, her and her husband called about 15 years ago, this kind of situation. A neighbor down the street from me got called that their giant white oak, some guy stopped by and told them that it was dying and that they needed to come down right away. And they kind of put them on a freak out. They were just really upset. So I came down and looked at the tree and I said, there's nothing wrong with this tree at all. And the tree, as of yesterday, when I saw her, is still a big, beautiful white oak. But these guys, they want to make money for the day. They need to, make the payroll. And exactly right.
we have Daniela, to that point, everybody's out to fill up their day. And if they're here and they have a half day's job, they want to find something else. We had somebody inside the lake take one of our ribbons off a tree. We put a red ribbon or a bright green ribbon on a tree. The bright green means it's okay to take it down. The red means you can't touch it. And this guy took off the green ribbon from one house and put it on another house and told the lady that ECC had already approved it. So it gets, I'm getting echo. It gets very difficult and it's challenging for us to try and keep track of it. So the simple answer is put an application into ECC. We will come out and we will take a look. Now, I will tell you, I can tell the difference between a tree and a bush, but after that, and a lot of times I get homeowners upset with me because I say, I can't tell you, there's nothing wrong with that tree as far as I'm concerned. And I say, you got to call an arborist and find out.
Just a thought, because I've lived here for so long and I've seen so many situations like this. Because we do have a front gate and they can't come in the back gate, if any tree company or anybody's coming in to do tree work, that wherever they're going, they have to come report to ECC first and tell them what they're doing and the address. Is that asking too much?
You need to come sit in our office one day. And yeah, well,
It was a lot more low key back then.
Yeah, well, it's not low key anymore. The office is, we've had to put up a security wall in order to not have, but I've been in the office working in the conference room in back of where the girls sitting out there. And we've had several people come in and get very threatening and it's funny. When the two ladies are sitting there, they get all boisterous and very out of place. And I walk out and step at the door frame and they see me and then all of a sudden the tone changes. So they ended up having to put up a wall and when Fred's around, the same thing happens when Fred's there because he's in the office. But the two girls up front, the two ladies up front were fully exposed at first and we've had to change that. So we had a guy had a friend that his lot backed up to public ground. He took down the fence and brought his equipment in through there so it wouldn't come through the gate. So there's some pretty amazing things that happen.
Real eye opener for me today. I've been kind of out of the loop of the community for about 25 years now, since about 2000.
Right. Well, there's a lot changing. Could you hand her the mic, please?
Lists or online lists of like where I might find like understory trees or, just lists of native trees.
Go online, just Google.
Yeah, but I was looking for a recommendation.
Where's your favorite?
I mean, something native, like, is it?
I mean, there's different groups around here that do like a lot of tree plantings. There's like Piedmont Environmental Council. They do a whole lot of stuff. They may have like an online planting list. I think if you're looking for like a whole bunch of native tree stuff, I don't know if we have any throwing shade folks around here.
Meadows Farms.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, Extension has less.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm.
And if you're looking for like more native species, Molly can speak to, we have a program called Throwing Shade, and I think I could be way off on this. So if I am, sorry. I think it's like a discount to,
Yeah, so it's a native tree and shrub discount program. Meadows Farms is probably the nursery closest to you that is participating in it. And so you can go to any of our participating nurseries, purchase a tree or shrub, get $25 off. All you have to do is fill out a short survey. It doesn't take any personal information. It just tells us where in the watershed the tree or shrub is going to be planted. And it's been really successful. It's March 1st to May 1st. So you have one more month to go and check them out. So.
and a lot of those places also will be able to help
Yeah.
you, you can interact with them. It's not necessarily a list, but you can interact with them and say, hey, this is what kind of setting it is. I've got 2 large trees that are right near where I want to put this thing. It's this far from a driveway or from a sidewalk or whatever. And they can kind of help lead you and help kind of guide you to your choice.
So Meadows Farms Nursery, Throwing Shade, Virginia. Throwing Shade, Virginia. It's what the young people call, it's a young person thing. So,
In this room, you qualify.
no, I'm just trying to be cool with the young people. So, but if you go to our website and you look up Throwing Shade, there's also ProTech Farm and Nursery that's further kind of, but it's in Orange. Yeah, there's over 30 nurseries across Virginia that are participating in the program. So,
Alex?
I've got an area of my yard. I had Gary over and he spent several hours talking to trees. But one area we didn't cover, on one side of my house, I have a very large oak tree and surface roots are coming towards my house, but not the other house. It's like small hill going that way, an incline. If I put mulch over those surface roots, can I put pavers on top of that? If they're pervious pavers?
You can. Yeah. You're talking about just loose pavers,
Yeah.
stepping stones, not an entire grid
Right.
pattern. I mean, yeah. You can. I mean, the important thing whenever we change the environment, specifically within that critical root zone of a tree, keep in mind you're going to have years to manifest the results of that. So make changes as slowly as possible to the soil structure or the around the root system, and monitor the tree over years. I tell people, take a picture of the canopy May 1st. Next year, same thing, May 1st. And sometimes you can start to see where you may not have leaves at the very ends of those branches. That's usually the first sign that tree is going into some kind of stress. Or it may start to put new growth out along the trunk. That's also a textbook sign of stress.
Okay.
I
thank
hope
you.
that helps.
Yeah, yes, it does. Now, would removing small diameter trees help with help the larger trees? Because they're pulling the water out?
not necessarily, no. Like I said before, like the urban forest, although we have roads and houses through them, all of the trees kind of connect with one another. And that's, yeah, they do. They talk with one another. And so if you're taking out small diameter trees, I mean, depending on the situation, maybe it wouldn't hurt something, but it usually isn't.
There are some exceptions to that. And I'll mention, you just in case, black walnuts, ailanthus trees, they will literally put out hormones in the soil that prohibit other trees from competing. So those are a couple notable exceptions. I want to go back to your question, looking for advice. And this may sound a little counter professional or as an arborist counter, there is a lot of good information online. So much so that our entire education system used to be built around teaching information to our children, right? Now all that information is available literally at our fingertips. With the dawn of AI, you can have a conversation with your phone about what you're looking for. And I have tested it. And as an arborist, I can attest most of what it says most of the time, not all the time, is very good. Better than going to one specific article that someone may have written or some tree company may have written to try to push business in certain times of the year in order to try to, that says, oh, you should not prune it, or you must prune these trees right now, or you must take your trees down this time of the year because of this reason. So there's a lot of good out there, and I'd be happy to talk with you about some of the resources that I use, even as an arborist. I'll drive down the road and have a conversation with my phone and kind of go back and forth and say, no, I don't think that's accurate. Why don't you, and it'll double check it. It'll come back and say, actually, you were right. So sometimes you got to tell it where to go. Yeah.
You asked how old the tulip poplar, hundreds of years. Case in point is Montpelier. We know where Montpelier is. James Madison set aside some land for some tulip poplars, and those tulip poplars are bigger than 3 of these chairs. And something I just thought about when you asked that and about how big they can get is that I think it's later this month, the 18th, Matthew, the international, is it the Mid-Atlantic or the International Tree Climbing Championship? It's
going to be here.
It's going to be at Montpelier. And that would be a fantastic event to go to if you want to be around a lot of arborists. And
A lot
just
of tree people are going to be there. A lot of tree nerds.
Yeah. Oh, it's going to be something. Yeah. But put that on your calendar and try to make that. You'll learn a lot. Insects are normal in the environment. Oh, yes. Well, the tulip poplar is an ancient tree. It's actually of the magnolia family. It's a magnolia. And they're actually lovely trees to climb because they don't tear you, they don't scratch you very much. But they have their purpose in the environment.
There's several species of caterpillar that rely on tulip poplar in particular. And then birds that feed on those
I've
caterpillars.
got I'm out of here by 3:00. So I want to bring this to a close. Any closing comments? Matt, Molly, or Kendra?
No, thanks for having us.
Yeah, I'd
It
like.
was helpful.
I do have one.
Geez, what a shock.
Just one comment. And it also goes back to what you were saying. How do you know? How do you find a reputable someone to help, right? Most of the time, from my experience, the people who come up and tell you that something is wrong with your tree, that you need to do it, that's a red flag most of the time. Now, if I'm invited to your property as an ISA certified arborist, I have two requirements. I cannot recommend anything that is not necessary based on my desire to work. Okay. But I must point out something if I see it that is a hazard or that I recognize as being a problem. Okay. So those are two of the requirements as an ISA certified arborist. So that's another reason why just having someone like that on your property. But if you do have someone stop by and say, this is a hazard tree, you can search online, you can send a picture. I use an app mainly for smaller trees and plants and gardening stuff that I don't know about, called Picture This, that works amazingly well. You can identify your trees, you can diagnose potential problems, and it's as easy as just pointing your phone, taking a picture, and it gives you a ton of information. So I hope that helps.
And just to end from the LOA point of view, no solicitors are allowed inside the lake. So nobody knocking on your door, you need to call security and tell them where you are. So, you're not allowed to solicit inside the lake, including the Girl Scouts, the high schools, and none of that is approved, unless they get it approved in advance. Yeah, exactly. And none of them, and to Matt's point, if they're coming knocking on your door and telling you need your tree works done, those are the first people you don't want to use. Yeah, good.
I would like to recommend, it only costs $100 a year joining the International Society of Arboriculture, and you'll get a magazine quarterly, and it'll really help to bring you into the tree world where it help to answer a lot of your questions, and it'll just be very helpful, and it'll help the trees by joining the International Society of Arboriculture.
Yeah, I'd like to thank Molly, Kinder, and Matt all for coming. Very kind of you. We appreciate it. Thank you all for coming.